This show is sponsored by Pro-Life New Zealand. Hi, welcome to the Pro-Life Guy. In this episode we're going to be asking the question, does poverty and child abuse justify abortion? It's quite common these days to hear people suggesting that without abortion, a whole lot of children are likely to grow up in households where they will suffer things like poverty or domestic abuse, and therefore abortion can't be all bad because it saves them from having to live this sort of lifestyle. When you stop and think about what is being proposed to you, you realise how obscene and vile this reasoning is. Because what is being suggested here is this: that in order to spare someone from a potential future of poverty or child abuse, it is acceptable to kill that person before they are born in order to save them from that life. This is really, really terrible reasoning. In fact, not only is it really terrible, because what you're suggesting is that killing someone is a good way of protecting them from another lesser harm, but it's also very dangerous because of the fact that it could apply to lots of other situations outside of the abortion debate. It's not just people in the womb who you could kill in order to protect them from some potential future harm. Let's say, for example, you have a 2-year-old who has grown up in an ordinary, everyday, normal sort of household and family environment. But all of a sudden, by the time the child is 2, the father has lost his job, he has become an alcoholic, and he now regularly hits the children and their mother. Wouldn't it be better to spare that child from many, many more years to come of this sort of ongoing abuse and poverty if we killed that 2-year-old child by smothering them in their sleep or poisoning them so that they didn't have to endure this terrible suffering and pain any longer? I think most people would rightly say that's an horrific response to a very, very tragic situation. Surely the authentically human thing to do in this situation is to actually stop the abuse and then put things in place to address the problems which lead to the abuse. So addressing the problem of alcoholism, the poverty in the home, etc., etc. Abortion doesn't do any of these things. It simply kills a person before they can become a victim of another crime. In effect, too, what we're proposing here is that in order to spare someone from a lesser form of suffering, we should perpetrate the ultimate atrocity against them and take away their fundamental human right, take away their very life. And by doing that, somehow we are doing something good for that person. It is an absolute nonsense to suggest that we could solve complex and very serious social problems such as poverty and child abuse by killing the potential victims of those crimes or those forms of suffering before they have a chance to fully enter into them as older children or as adults. This is really bad reasoning. Anybody proposing this needs to stop and reassess why they are proposing this. The reason I think a lot of people fall for this particular argument around abortion and poverty or child abuse is because we live in a culture that is desperately trying to find quick fix solutions to very serious and complex social problems. The problem is, of course, that a lot of those quick fix solutions really aren't solutions at all, and this case is a classic example of that. If you want to address the serious problem of child abuse and poverty in the home, then you need to address that issue, not terminate the lives of the people who could potentially become victims of those terrible sufferings and then suggest that you are doing something good in the process. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time on the Pro-Life Guy. This show is sponsored by Pro-Life New Zealand.